Color of Change started in the aftermath of a flood, Hurricane Katrina, that was caused by bad decision makers, that turned into a life-altering disaster by those same bad decision makers. Black people were literally on their roofs begging for the government to do something, and they were left to die. And while that exposed a whole lot of things that we know about geographic segregation, generational poverty, the impacts of climate change, and unjust criminal justice and education system, at the heart of it, no one was nervous about disappointing Black people. And that's not a question of policy, that's a question of power. And it's a question of building the type of power that changes that. It's about having an unapologetic rejection of corporate money like we have at Color of Change. It's allowed us to take on fights to protect an open internet and kick folks like Pat Buchanan, Bill O'Reilly, and Glenn Beck off the air. So are we going to get this right? That is a question that I keep asking myself. Are we going to get it right this time? And I think we are only going to get it right if we truly understand how power works. The rules and norms of society, how they are enforced, who they are enforced for, that is how power operates. And far too often, we mistake presence for power. The awareness, the attention, the ability for people to sort of talk about an issue, the retweets, the cover stories in newspapers, for the ability to actually change the rules. Power is the ability to change the rules. Sometimes those rules are the written rules of policy, and sometimes they are the unwritten rules of culture. But mistaking presence for power is how we've gotten ourselves into some of the trouble we're in right now. So I want to talk about a missed opportunity. So 6 years ago, I had just started as executive director at Color of Change. And this guy right here, he was on The Celebrity Apprentice on primetime TV. Once a week with huge ratings, NBC making big profits off of him. And at the same time, he was going around the country advancing racist tropes about President Obama, saying that he wasn't a citizen. At Color of Change, we decided very early on that we had to say something about it. It was about the rules and norms. And we launched a campaign, and the first thing I heard from progressives around the country is, doesn't Color of Change have better things to worry about? Rashad's making Color of Change a pop culture organization. This feels really light. There are really serious, important issues that we have to worry about, and we couldn't get anyone to join the campaign. We got some press, we got some attention, we got some presence, and NBC continued to make a lot of profit. And once a week, Donald Trump sat in front of America. He got to be positioned as a smart, strategic businessman. And then he went out around the world with a message of hate and intolerance and racism. It was a missed opportunity, and it was a missed opportunity for us to truly understand how power operates, how culture operates, and how those things can collude to create hostile climates that don't allow us to build the type of power we need to win. Fast forward almost 2 years, and at Color of Change, we learned about this secret right-wing organization, the American Legislative Exchange Council. They were passing laws for the past 40 years all around states, laws that put communities in harm's way. ALEC had been incredibly successful by taking corporate money and moving it to state legislators, and then in the process, passing laws that hurt community after community after community and building more power and more corporate power. They were behind the discriminatory voter ID laws that were popping up all around the country, and we were trying to figure out what to do about them. We could have launched some petition campaigns and been very present on the issue. Don't sign that discriminatory voter ID law. And they would have seen our petitions, and they would have laughed, and we would have delivered some petitions and maybe gotten some press and had some big rallies, but there was no leverage. And thanks to our friends at the Center for Media and Democracy, we found out that 98% of ALEC's money came from corporations. corporations who every single day said, buy our products and use our services. So we reached out to those corporations behind the scenes while we also launched a campaign publicly. We didn't name the corporations in the public campaign, but we said stop corporate-funded voter suppression and started educating our members while communicating behind the scenes to these corporations, giving them an opportunity to do the right thing behind the scenes. Then we'd get on the phone with them and they would say, we give a little to the left and we give a little to the right. And we would say, that's great, but there's not really two sides to black people voting. Then we would have some more calls, and by the final call, they would get their senior-level black person on the phone with me, and you know, corporations got folks of all shades and sizes doing this work. And they would talk about voting with their grandfather, and I would talk about voting with my grandfather, and we would agree to get off the phone. We would try to channel for them what a public campaign might look like, show them some of the billboards, what they might look like. And while we were doing that, and we got some corporations to pull out behind the scenes, we learned about the tragedy in Florida, the tragedy of Trayvon Martin. And while many of you in this room and many around the world were standing up and fighting for Justice Trayvon, we were too. We were mobilizing our members, hundreds of thousands of them, urging the Department of Justice to get involved, demanding accountability from the local authorities. And while we were doing that work, we found out that the Stand Your Ground law that was shielding George Zimmerman was also an ALEC law. Written by Walmart, the largest seller of long guns, and passed in multiple states by ALEC, and we decided that we had to pivot. We had to move the members who were standing up for justice for Trayvon and the members who were standing up for voting rights, and we had to move them. And we gave the first corporation 48 hours. We told them, here's the website, here's the back and forth conversations. We will release all this in 48 hours unless you drop from ALEC. It was Coca-Cola, and they did not leave. 5 hours after we launched our campaign and started mobilizing our members, Coca-Cola said, we will leave ALEC. Please stop having your members call us. Over the course of the next couple of weeks and months, we moved our members up a ladder of engagement, mobilizing against corporation after corporation, showing up to shareholders meetings, taking over social media platforms, running radio ads. Corporation after corporation dropped from ALEC, leaving them with a $1.5 million budget shortfall, forcing them to have to drop the committees that worked on Stand Your Ground and voter ID laws. And in the process, making our members not just present on an important issue, not just loud and aware, but building the type of power to force the type of change that we desired. In the process, we built this strategy around respond, build, pivot, and scale. Responding to moments, building energy, pivoting to something systemic, and then scaling that energy. And we've had to do that this past 2 years. As we, for a number of years prior to that, along with our friends and partners in the movement for Black lives in local communities around the country, have stood up and fought as Black people have been harmed and hurt by police, by vigilantes, sometimes on video, and nothing's been done. These videos have been viral, and we've mobilized folks to action. We've responded, and we've built energy. We've demanded things from the Justice Department. We've demanded things from local authorities. And we did not have the right incentive structure. The Department of Justice, the ability for them to get involved wasn't there. The work that we tried to do to get local folks involved wasn't happening. So we had to pivot. And this election cycle, we pivoted to district attorneys. 2,400 district attorneys in this country. 85% of them run unopposed. Nearly 90% are white. The incentive structure for them getting involved in these moments was completely off. We would go to district attorneys, demand something, and they would look at us like we were crazy. And so this election cycle, we worked to translate that energy, that movement energy, into an electoral outcome, picking cities around the country where we worked with local folks to move that attention into the election, in cities like Orlando and Chicago and Houston, kicking out DAs who did not care about Black lives and putting in people who ran on reform platforms. But it does not stop there. It continues with the ongoing accountability because after those elections, we started having district attorneys from around the country start calling us, talking about 2017 and 2018. We had potential candidates calling us and saying, hey, we want to know what you're looking at and what you're thinking about in terms of these races. The ability to scale these type of engagements relies on us understanding the rules and the norms and putting our energy and attention in the right places. Because I think what we can oftentimes do as progressives is get into magical thinking. That we can get the smart researchers to create a report and change happens. That the lawyers go into the courtroom and they do the case and everything is done. That someone gets behind a computer and creates the right code and everything magically changes that's been wrong for hundreds and thousands of years. We just start a new organization and it's suddenly done. We are not going to legal our way out of this, policy our way out of this, code our way out of this, or nonprofit executive direct our way out of this. It will take people power. It will take narrative change, and it will take the most impacted people being at the center of the story, and we have to build that energy, and we have to pivot to bring things to scale. But just as importantly, and part of all this, is that we have to direct the marches in the right places. We have to direct the march to the places for whom showing up as a march will mean something. We have to direct the march to the corporations. We have to direct the march to the media outlets. We have to direct the marches to the allies who might be caving in, not to Trump. But we must direct our marches to those who enable him. That is how we build the type of presence that makes black people powerful, that makes progressives powerful, that creates the type of change that changes the rules. And in the process, we have to make all of us powerful. Black people, women, immigrants, those at the intersection. All of us must be powerful in this story. Because that is the most strategic way to win. Because at the heart of this, and the heart of the story of this country, is that when oppressed people win, they win for everyone. Thank you.